Digital twins require a characteristic that I call cohesion. And this has been one of the main characteristics I've had for digital twins right from the initial origination of digital twins. And cohesion is this idea that says that the digital twin needs to behave just like its physical counterpart does. It needs to obey the physical laws, and it can't do things as change the law of gravity or change how material deforms that is inconsistent with what the physical version would do. The little wiggle room we have here is the fact that fidelity and granularity is determined by the use case, but we can't have digital twins that don't have cohesion with the physical world. The interoperability requires cohesion for these two kind of situations. The first one is internally. So individual digital twins have to have cohesion internally. So if I lengthen the beam of steel beam, then the weight of that steel beam has to increase also. If I change the FEA mesh for a part that I'm doing analysis on for structural things, then the geometry, the physical geometry has to change also. So I need this idea of cohesion internally for digital twins. Simply for themselves, they have to have this idea of conformity to the real world. Where it gets complicated is when I have multiple digital twins, and so now they have to conform not only internally but externally. So in this picture I have here, I have an airplane, digital twins of an airplane, fuel tank, and engine. And so when I put fuel into the tank, the amount of fuel will increase in that digital twin, but also the weight of the airplane will have to increase at the same time. The engine, as it gets hot, will reflect the fact that its parts are heating up, but adjacent parts will also have to have their heat increase, because that's how the physical world will work. And so interoperability requires cohesion not just internally, but externally when I have multiple digital twins. And when I have multiple digital twins, it gets a lot more complicated. How does cohesion enforcement occur? In the physical world, it's easy. It has a permanence all of its own, and atoms enforce the material enforces how they're going to basically behave. And so they behave the law of physics simply by virtue of the atoms and their structure that they're in. And so the physical world is a fairly simple thing. I cannot increase a steel beam without increasing its weight. It's enforced in the physical world. And the virtual world, though, is that it's about information inputs and digital processing in order to do enforcement. So it does not have the same permanence, and we basically have to enforce that by how we handle the informational inputs, and then how do we process that. So it's a lot more complicated in terms of the virtual world being able to do cohesion enforcement, and in fact we have no issue in the physical world. It happens just on its own. So how do we look at potential digital twin cohesion solutions? The first one is what everybody would like, and that is standards. So ontology, method call, semantics. And so we have to programmatically impose these things on our digital twin, and that means we have to get these right. You know, in the physical world, it doesn't matter what we call things. I mean, we can call a gear, or a sprocket, or simply a disc with teeth on it. That form and behavior is built into it. When we're in the virtual world, how we call things is really important, and we basically have to develop ontologies or ontology classes so that we understand what we're dealing with. The other thing with standards is they take time, and there's a lot of politics involved with this. Standards are going to be much more difficult for the virtual than the physical, and standards are, in a lot of most situations, good for non-dynamic, non-evolving things. So standards, tomorrow is Groundhog Day. It looks just like today. When we're in a dynamic, evolving situation, standards are difficult to do. And so while I think it'd be great to have standards, I think it's tough in the evolving world of digital twins that we are. The other thing is standards basically constrain as much as they enable, and so we have to worry about doing standards today that are going to constrain us from doing things in the future. The next way is harmonization. So harmonization is this idea that people get together, organizations get together and decide that they're going to have some common things that they do. They're going to call parts in a common way. They're going to have method call schematics that are common to them. And so it's not as formal as standards by any means, but it works in that these things start to work together in a harmonization that doesn't have the overhead that standards do. Middleware is another solution. So companies that will develop middleware that, in essence, be able to take various digital twins and do the translations that are necessary so that they work together. And we've seen that in things like ERP systems and other kinds of systems. But that would certainly be an approach that we could use. It's a bit ad hoc, no question about it, but it could cover some of the waterfront with requirement for multiple digital twins and their cohesion capability. And then finally, platforms. I think that there are organizations that will develop a platform where they will take care of the work of pulling together different kinds of digital twins, and you can, in essence, contract them. So think about cloud-based platforms where you're not having to worry about that. Somebody else has to worry about that. So this is the requirements for interoperative digital twins. I think it's a big opportunity. We're certainly at the early phase of it, but these are issues that we're going to have to wrestle to the ground in order to have clearly multiple digital twins that work as a coherent capability.